What if this is the last video of your life? Not because something happens to you, but because one morning you wake up and the internet is just gone. No YouTube, no messages, no banking, nothing. And it never comes back. The whole world thrown back 50 years overnight. Sounds impossible. It isn't. Because everything you do online doesn't live in some cloud in the sky. It runs through cables, real cables, some no thicker than a garden hose, lying in the dark at the bottom of the ocean. And right now, someone is cutting them. Here's the thing almost nobody realizes. When you send a message to someone overseas, it doesn't go up to a satellite and back down. It dives into the ocean. Around 99% of everything that crosses an ocean, every email, every video call, every dollar, travels through cables lying on the seabed. There are over 1 million kilometers of them wrapped around the planet, and they are the real bones of the modern world. And we're not just talking about your Netflix. Something like $10 trillion in money moves through these wires every single day. The orders that connect the US military to its bases across the world, those go through the cables too. Satellites carry a tiny sliver of it and couldn't replace them if they tried. So you'd assume something this important is guarded like Fort Knox. Armed ships, no-go zones, cameras. It isn't. These cables are unmarked and basically unprotected, and their exact locations are printed on maps anyone can buy, so ships know where not to drop anchor. Sit with that for a second. The most valuable thing humanity has ever built is lying unlocked at the bottom of the sea, and the only thing keeping it safe is that, for 100 years, nobody really tried to break it. Well, somebody's trying now. Christmas Day 2024. In the freezing Baltic Sea, the stretch of water between Scandinavia and Russia, a major power cable running between Finland and Estonia suddenly goes dead. Authorities scramble, and they stop a passing oil tanker called the Eagle S. When they investigate, they find something hard to explain away. That ship had been dragging its anchor along the seabed, for miles, right over the cable. Now, one ship, one bad night, maybe that's an accident, but it wasn't one ship. Go back through the previous 2 years and the Baltic is littered with the same story. A Chinese cargo ship leaves a Russian port, crosses directly over 2 cables, and both break. Another vessel is later found with its anchor simply missing, and the paint scraped onto the broken cable matches the paint from that ship. Over and over, the same script. People started calling it a shadow fleet, beat-up tankers with murky ownership, the kind where you can never quite tell who's giving the orders, often with their tracking signals switched conveniently off. And here's what gives it away. An anchor doesn't drag along the bottom for 100 miles by mistake. You'd feel it. You'd hear it. Dragging an anchor that far isn't a slip-up. It's a signature. But, and this is the genius of the whole thing, nobody has been able to prove a single one of these was on purpose. Because whoever's doing this picked the one weapon on Earth that looks exactly like an accident. Let me explain why that matters so much. Every year, all on its own, the world sees around 200 of these cables break. Fishing nets snag them, anchors drift in storms, underwater landslides snap them. It's so common that repair crews treat it as routine. And that ordinary, boring background of accidents is the perfect place to hide a crime. Because when your cable gets cut and you go looking for who did it, the other side just shrugs. Rough weather. The anchor slipped. Prove otherwise. And mostly, nobody can. Investigation after investigation, across multiple countries, has ended the same frustrating way. Strong suspicion, seized ships, angry headlines, and then not enough hard proof to actually charge anyone. Think about what that hands an enemy. You can reach out and damage another country, even cripple it, and pay no price, because you never technically did anything. No missile to trace, no soldier to capture. just an unlucky anchor on a bad night. It's a way to attack a country without ever admitting you were there. And if cutting cables one at a time in a cold northern sea sounds slow, that's because you haven't seen the places where the whole world's wires are squeezed into a few narrow miles. Because here's a comforting lie we tell ourselves, that the internet is this vast, spread out web, so tangled and redundant that you could never really take it down. For most of the planet, that's just not true. The cables don't spread out evenly, they funnel. They get forced through a handful of narrow choke points, and at those points, the entire digital lifeline of whole continents is packed into a strip of water you could cross in a small boat. Take the Red Sea and a gap called the Bab al-Mandab, a strait barely 30 kilometers wide off the coast of Yemen. A massive share of all the data flowing between Europe and Asia is crammed through there. In September of 2025, several cables in that exact spot were cut. And just like that, hundreds of millions of people across India, Pakistan, and the Gulf watched their internet slow to a crawl. One pinch point. Whole nations stuttering. Then there's Taiwan, where cables out to its smaller islands have been cut again and again, which a lot of analysts read as a quiet rehearsal for cutting Taiwan off from the world entirely. And in some places, dozens of separate cables all crawl ashore at a single beach, through a single building. You don't have to cut 1,000,000 kilometers of cable to hurt the world. You just have to cut the right few miles. And the moment those few miles get cut, we run face first into the most frightening part of this entire story, which is how almost nobody alive can actually fix them. You'd think a planet this dependent on these cables would have a fleet of repair ships standing by everywhere. The real number is around 60 ships for the entire world. Many of them old, some near retirement, and most of them already busy laying new cable rather than waiting around to fix breaks. So when a cable snaps, the nearest repair ship might be an ocean away, and a single fix can take 10 to 20 days. 10 to 20 days of a country running dark or limping along. But that's not even the part that should worry you. Here's the part. A huge share of the world's cable repair, including work on cables owned by America and its allies out in the Pacific, is handled by a company controlled by the Chinese state. The country that shows up over and over as the prime suspect in cutting these cables is, in many places, the same one you have to call to repair them. We built a digital world that runs on wires our rivals can quietly sever, and then only they can stitch back together. And in a real conflict, there's nothing that says they'd pick up the phone. We didn't just leave the door unlocked. We handed the only spare key to the person we're most afraid of. So, what if this really is the last video of your life? It's not a fantasy. It's a job already in progress. The entire world you live in hangs on a few thin threads in the dark that one anchor can sever, that almost no one can repair, in a crime built to look like an accident. Nobody has to declare war. Nobody even has to get caught. So the next time your screen freezes, the payment won't go through, the call just drops. Don't be so quick to blame your Wi-Fi. Somewhere out there, in the cold and the dark, a rusty old ship is dragging its anchor across the bottom of the sea. And the only thing keeping your world switched on is the hope that this time, it really was an accident.
The most important things run where nobody's looking. Subscribe and stay one step ahead with us.